Hi everyone, I'm April, and you're watching The Tangled Cat Speaks, and this is a book edition. So, we're going to go over several books that I either read or listened to over the last couple of weeks. If you are new here, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. And just as a kind of an introduction to myself, which I kind of like to do a little bit. I am in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, which is just outside of Albuquerque, and I like to knit, crochet, and read. I keep my crafty, well, lately I've been doing that, keeping my crafty videos separate from my reading videos. So let's get started. And actually, I have been doing this 100 book challenge where I read or listen to 100 books before I'm allowed to buy any new books. And the past few weeks have been mostly books from the library. But I actually did really, really well this time with books that I actually own. So that's bumping up my numbers. I was like, if I have books someday soon. Let's see. So let's get started with the two books that I didn't own, which are volumes 19 and 20 of the Attack on Titan manga series. Those I get from the library. I'm still enjoying it, but I'm really considering not continuing with the spin-off kind of series after I finish this main series, because I found another manga series that I'd like to read after that. But I'll talk more about that when it comes time, because there are a total of 34 in the Attack on Titan series, and I just barely finished 20. So still very much enjoying this Attack on Titan series. I know that there is an anime on, I believe it's Netflix, maybe, but I don't know that I want to watch that, because this manga series is just creepy enough in black and white still pictures. I don't know that I would like it in color moving animation. I don't know, that would just freak me out, because it's very different, and these Titans are scary to me anyway. So those are the two books that I didn't own. So getting to the books that I do own that I finished, I'm going to start with the first one here. This is John Le Carre, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And I got this at a little free library one time. And this is a book from 1974. This follows a U.S. spy named George Smiley during the U.S. and Russian, during the Cold War era. And it is believed that the U.S. has a mole. And they're trying to find out who that is. I believe that this is part of a bigger series involving George Smiley, but this was the one that was recommended to a reading group that I'm a part of. I have to admit, this is not my style of books. This whole espionage thing, it was very confusing. It's weird, because I liked it, but I didn't really understand a lot of it, because there was just a whole lot of moving parts, and it was just a little too much for my brain. I would like to read another book by John Le Carre. I have one, I believe it's called The Constant Gardener, which I don't think has anything to do with politics and espionage or anything like that. Now, that being said, it was okay. I would, if I were to be rating things, I would say it was sort of mid-range for me. I enjoyed it, but it was too confusing. Now, there is a TV series from back in the 70s. I think it was 75, 76, something like that. And it is a TV miniseries that stars Alec Guinness. Yes, Alec Guinness of the original Obi-Wan Kenobi fame. And I had heard about that originally from someone at my work had mentioned to me, oh, you should watch this TV series. And then I forgot about it. And then a few months later, this got brought up in the reading group. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So now I could read that, watch this TV series, and then go talk to that guy about it. So I am actually in the middle of the TV series. There's 7 episodes, and I think I've done 3 or 4. And it's very dated. It's very 70s. But I'm enjoying the TV series a lot more than I did the book. And I think that's just because there's more of a visual thing and I can understand all of the moving parts a little better. Not still 100% sure about everything, but hopefully it all comes together as the series gets closer to the end. And I do think that there is also a full-length feature film sometime in the, I want to say maybe 2012, early 2000s, starring Dracula. What's his name? Gary Oldman, maybe? I'm not positive. I don't know if I'm going to watch that. I might. I probably will. So maybe if I just watch those movies, I'll understand a little bit more. Anyway, moving on to the other book, another book that I read that I actually owned is called The Weight of Ink by Rachel Kadish. Now this one, it's a pretty big book too. This one is it's this one of those that kind of, it's somebody in the present time doing historical research, and the story goes back and forth between the present time. There's a story that's going on there, not just the research, but as well as going back in time and telling us what's going on and what they're researching, kind of thing. So it goes back and forth, different points of view, different eras. And the present time people are researching some notes from a rabbi from the 1500s, I believe. And as they're going through it, one lady says, I don't think that this person who they've named is, I think it's Aleph, that's the signature of the notes of the scribe. And this lady says, I don't think that this is a man. I think that this scribe was a woman. And that throws everybody kind of for a loop, because in the 1500s, that would have been unheard of. So it's a really interesting look at both situations. And I really enjoyed it. It's a very interesting story. I really enjoyed it. And then another book that I read that I actually own and in physical copy is Enemy Mine. Now, this is by, it's a very small one here, Barry B. Longyear, and I'll put that up here. Now, this I did not know existed for a long, long time, because Enemy Mine is a movie from the 80s that I very, very much enjoyed, and I still watch it from time to time. And when I heard that this was a book, I wanted to find out whether the movie came first and then the book, or if the book had come first. And sure enough, the book did come first. So I wanted to pick that up, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And it took me a long time to find it. And I did. And it is basically the same story. There are a few details and a little bit of about how the end went down that are different from the movie, but I still very, very much enjoyed it just as much as I did the movie. So I am keeping this book. These other two, these big ones, these ones, I am going to be donating to a little free library somewhere. But I'm keeping this one, and I will probably put it right next to the DVD copy of the movie that I own. But what this is about is it's science fiction. They're up in space. There's this planet that 2 different species are fighting against each other to claim this planet for its resources. And during this battle, these 2 fighters crash land, and then they end up stuck on this planet and they're having to survive until they can get rescued. And it's interesting to see how these two, who are basically mortal enemies, they hate each other because that's what they're raised to believe, humans are awful, Dracs are awful, blah, 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 blah. And now they have to rely on each other to survive. So it's a really, really good story. I very much enjoyed reading this, and I loved the changes, but I also loved what I saw in the movie. So to me, they're just, kind of two sides of the same coin kind of thing. The next book that I read is part of the Shadows of the Apt series, and this is called Dragonfly Falling. It's the second book in the series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I am blown away with this series. It is so clever to have this steampunk kind of feel, and then the people are kind of like bugs. There's, well, I mentioned this before, but there's wasp people, bug, moths and beetles and all of this. And they're basically humanoid creatures, but they have different bug characteristics, physically as well as they call it their art, but it's basically like some of them can magically do things related to their bug species. But it's super exciting, and I couldn't put it down. There's this battle going on with the wasps right now, and all of the other bugs are kind of just like, no, we don't want the wasps to take over. So fun, so fast paced, and I just did not want to put it down. But so friends and I online are doing this one book a month, and I've got 8 more books, and it's only the middle of April, so I gotta wait for another couple of weeks before I can pick up the 3rd book. But I am loving this series, and I'm so glad that I found it. Now I do own this on Kindle. And another book that I own on Kindle, which is the next one I'm going to talk about, is Sparkling Cyanide, and this is by Agatha Christie. This one is about a woman who is found dead, and it is presumed that she committed suicide. And as things go along, some people are just kind of, nope, I don't believe that, and they start looking more and more into it. So now the police kind of have to reinvestigate. I'm sure you can guess that it involves poison because the name's Sparkling Cyanide. But it's one of my, I've read this a couple of times before, and it's one of my favorites that don't actually involve Miss Marple or Hercule Poirot. This one has Colonel Race. He's the lead character, or the lead detective, I should maybe put it that way, in a few other books by Agatha Christie. Not nearly as prolific as Marple or Poirot, but there are a few books dedicated to him. But I really, really enjoyed this one. Had a lot of fun. Even though I already knew what was going to happen because I have read that one a couple of times before, I still really, really enjoyed it, and it went really, really fast. That is really all that I have right now. I am in the middle of a couple of other big books to kind of take up the time before I get back to my bug people books. I am so in love with that series. I hope that the other 8 books just keep the whole steam engine going, because I'm very, very much enjoying it. But that's all I've got this time, and I will see you again next time. Thanks for spending some time with me. Bye-bye.